Now, there were about a bunch of people in DeLand that went to work for a place out on Lake Beresford called the Beresford Boat Works. And they helped in the making of tugboats for the United States Army. Now, I always thought of a tugboat as just something that pushed a barge up and down the Mississippi River. But no, these boats were very special. These boats were used by the United States Army in critical ways for the war effort. They salvaged, they towed, they rescued, they patrolled, and when necessary, they fought. And we've got the man here tonight who was the manager of the boat works to tell you all about it. I would like to bring out Mr. B.D. Olson. Mr. Olson.
Good evening. I'm B.D. Olson. Welcome to the Beresford Boat Works. Today is VJ Day. Finally, the war's over. That's not all I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I'm happy as hell, just like everyone else, that this damn war is finally over. But I also know that the Army will soon cancel its contract with the American Manufacturing Corp Marine Division. But I'm here to let you know I plan to open a new company that will build boats and other products right here on Lake Beresford. I think I'll call it the Olson Corporation just to keep it simple. So a company founded during the war will continue on. And that's a good thing for the DeLand area. Now, the other things I'd like to explain to you are probably still classified by the Army. Can you keep a secret? Can I trust you? Okay. All right. Well, here's how it started. Just after Pearl Harbor, we began talking about building tugboats on Lake Beresford. And the AMC people wanted to have a place near Orlando to build inexpensive steel-hulled boats. And Lake Beresford was an ideal candidate because of the good workforce in DeLand. I agreed to be the operations manager because I had a lot of experience with steel-hulled boats, and I had a marine operation in Jacksonville. There was just one problem. Lake Beresford's shallow, even in the main channel. So the diesel engines would need to be mounted on the boats after they made the trip to Jacksonville. And that was okay with me because it was easy to float them down the river. The only thing we had to do is turn the boat sideways in Lake Beresford because of the shallow water. Now, there's nothing wrong with a steel-hulled boat. They'll be around for probably 100 years, long after wooden boats will be gone. But our tugs, with their all-steel construction, top-heavy superstructure, combined with a lack of watertight door seals and a fuel tank with minimal baffles to keep the fuel from sloshing from side to side as the boats tip, made them impractical for open water use. In fact, our tugs needed to stay on calm water, and that's what we thought was going to happen to them when we were building them. They'd stay in coastal and U.S. harbors and be towing barges up and down the coast and the intercoastal waterway, and that's it, nothing else. And that's what happened with some of them, but not all of them. Now, this is the part no one knows. Over half of our tugs were sent to Europe to fight the Nazis and Uncle Adolf. That's right. Some of them even helped out at D-Day. I have a friend, an inside contact with the office that handles ST assignments, and he told me the ST-344 hit a mine and exploded about 2 weeks after the Normandy invasion. Now, he hasn't gotten explanations on everything, but he tells me on the QT that at least 4 of our tugs that were sent over, out of the 15 or so, were lost. And he's trying to get more information, but there doesn't seem to be anything but a few brief reports. My friend has to be careful. The scuttlebutt is that the number of ST tugs lost because of the design issues and emergency wartime use has been underreported because of low morale. I imagine that the records will probably be lost down the road and nobody will be able to prove anything. Just a few months ago, I was talking to an ST captain who told me he made a trip from New Orleans to Hawaii with an ST without even the use of a chronometer. Now, he said he barely survived that trip. And he also told me he'd heard many rumors about these all-steel tugs capsizing. I believe he was the captain of the ST-250. I also heard a story about a convoy of small tugs being towed across the Atlantic by larger tugs. They hit a patch of rough weather this past October, and a number of those tugs were lost. So after that fiasco, they started shipping the tugs back across on Liberty ships and Victory ships. I imagine down the road somebody's going to complain about these all-steel tugs capsizing. And I want you to know that our tugs, we built every one just the way that U.S. Army specified. I mean, just the way they specified. But what does the Army know about building boats anyway? We received last year the E Award, which is given to Army and Navy contractors for speedy and quality production. Only 5% of federal contractors receive that award. Well, I hope you can remember some of this tug history, but just be sure to keep it secret for a little while, okay? Thank you.
Now we know the truth, that our tugboats were in the thick of it, fighting Nazi Germany. Isn't that nice? Of the 16 that were sent over to Europe, we know of 4 that were sunk, and perhaps there were more, because frankly the records are just a mess. But they were very instrumental in helping to build the mulberries for the invasion of Normandy. You know what the mulberries are? Anybody know what a mulberry is? Yeah. I'm not talking about the thing you eat off a bush. Okay. No, okay. Mulberries are those like floating jetties or docks that were absolutely critical for the invasion of Normandy, for D-Day. And so that they can offload the troops and all of the equipment. And if you go over there today, you'll still see some of them out in the water. I think there's 4 off of the beach of Omaha. Well, we believe that there are now 6 of the war boats, and they were known as the DeLand war boats, still in existence around the world. They're pretty old, so I think they must have been very well built to still be afloat. Now,
we're honoring the tugboats that were built here in DeLand in World War II. Most people don't realize that on Lake Beresford, we built 29 all-steel tugboats, and they're pretty good-sized boats for use in the harbors. And until recently, everyone really didn't know where they went. And I started doing research after I retired. I found a builder's plaque that was actually on one of the boats and wondered where that boat had gone, and then started doing research on individual boats and found that 16 of them actually went to Germany and were involved in things like D-Day. This particular boat, ST-344, was without a doubt 100% certain at D-Day on D-Day +1, and they were building the mulberries, the docks off of the coast of Omaha that were crucial to our success there. It's one thing to send the men in, but if you had to keep bringing in troops and supplies and everything, or you weren't gonna win the battle. And sadly, 6 weeks later, it blew up, hit a mine off the coast of Cherbourg, France, and exploded. And while I'm doing internet research, what do I find? A photograph of the one young man that was killed on that boat. He's the only one that we know of by photograph that was actually killed on that boat. We don't know what happened to the rest of the crew. We assume most of them were killed.
During World War II, much of Central Florida was focused on aviation. But in DeLand, one of the military's unsung heroes was chugging along.
We got involved in building United States Army tugboats built on Lake Beresford during World War II and slightly thereafter. They built a total of 42 all-steel tugboats. 29 during the war were completed, and of that 29, we know for a fact that 16 of them actually went to Germany. We found later on that one of the World War II boats ended up in Korea, and 4 of the last run built in 1953 ended up in Vietnam. So our tugboat served 3 wars.
As the tugboats made their way around the world, DeLand remained the perfect place to build.
They wanted to choose a site that was on the St. Johns River, and DeLand was perfect, and it also had a good workforce. They ended up having about 500 people, welders, plumbers, pipe fitters, working at what we call the Beresford Boat Works during World War II and later. They knew if they built them on Lake Beresford, they could float them up to Jacksonville without the engine being installed. And once it was there, they could install the engine, the tugboat would go down into the water another 2 feet, and then they could turn them over to the U.S. Army from that point, which is exactly what they did.
The tug served in many ways, but the boat's resilience is really what set them apart.
The tugboats could push an ammo barge in like they did at Normandy. They could tow stuff up to Intracoastal. They could save lives. They mounted machine guns during wartime and shot down airplanes. The tugboats were everything to everybody, and they knew that they had to have them.